What's going on today, everybody? Hope you're having a fantastic day. I know that I am because I get to work on that guy right there. So we're working on it, and we're doing actually a sumo build, a supermoto build. And with that, we need to put street lights on it. So always check your areas, your state's codes on what you actually need. And this one's for Washington. And I'm going to be adding a headlight to it eventually. But for right now, we're getting things started. We're getting wiring done. We're getting some buttons put in. So with that, I'll show you what we got going on. So I've already started, and you can't hardly even tell. Can't tell really what's done with it, and that's what I want this whole build to be. So I've got some stuff going on with it, and it still looks like a dirt bike. That's the biggest thing. The only thing that you're really going to be able to tell the difference is when I get the tires. The tires won't be knobby. They'll be street tires like that bike's. So we're going to go ahead, get to the lighting part of it. Now this is the super cool, fun, kind of frustrating part. So let's get to it. Now the coolest part to this, I think, is going to be the front lights and turn signals. And I'm super excited for that part especially, but you guys are going to have to wait. We're going to actually work on the tail light. I'm starting from the tail light, trying to figure out where I want my license plate, because you have to have a license plate, your brake lights, turn signals, all that good stuff, running lights. You got to have that visible from the rear. So with that, we've got to figure out where the best place to go with our wiring and our lights and all that stuff. Now with the wiring harness, I'm going to try to make it to where I can use it on the street, and then if I need to, I can take it off real quick and then use it for the dirt, because with it being kind of a stealth street supermoto, with that you kind of got to hide some stuff. So I'm hiding the brake lights as much as I can, as well as the license plate. A lot of people go ahead and put a license plate just dangling off the back fender. I don't like that. That's factory. That doesn't look good. I still want it to look like a dirt bike. But with that, I want to go ahead and have it able to be able to use it as a dirt bike. So I don't want to have my lights and my tail or my license plate hanging out there when I'm throwing rocks at it all the time out on the trails. Sometimes I'm going to have to do that if I drive to the trails, but for right now, I'm planning on having two different setups. I've got the street bike if I really, really need street, and I've got the dirt bike if I really, really need dirt, but I want to be able to have, if a buddy comes over, I want to have a bike for them to come on the street with me. I've got multiple dirt bikes so that we can do the dirt bike thing, but I only have one street bike. So we need to get another street legal bike on the road, and that's what's inspiring all of this. So with that, let's go ahead. I'm started building the wire loom. Let's check in with that, because I've got actually some tips and tricks on what I've got going so far. So here it is. Here's the rear light, and this is kind of where we're at. I've built this wire loom, and I've gone ahead and added this plug to it. Now this plug is the sole purpose is to leave the wiring connected to the bike and be able to take this light off with the license plate. So I'm going to put this light on the license plate and the mounting bracket, and that stuff's going to be tucked way back under in here. I'm thinking these two bolts, maybe these two bolts. I haven't decided how we're going to try to mount it. There's a couple different mounting spots, but the whole general purpose, or where I want it to go, is I want that light to be about right here somewhere, and that means that I got to use these mounting brackets, and we'll see. We're still figuring that stuff out. But for right now, we're trying to get the wiring dialed in. And then we'll figure out a license plate from there. So I've got my wiring. I've got it kind of started. Now this is my brake light, running light, brake light, left and right turn signals. So this has everything you need in one LED. And then that comes in a kit with the fronts, which are actually on the bike, that have your running light, which is white. On the rear, your running light is red, and then a turn signal, and they're sequential, so that's super cool. It looks really neat. But we're working on the tail light, trying to build this wire loom for it to kind of get started, so I can run it from the back and run it up, and then start wiring stuff in, because I've got wires that I need to run into. I've got buttons that I need to put on here, so we've got a lot of work to do. But with that, we need to get wiring started, and then we'll take some plastics off and start putting some stuff together. So There we go. Now, I mentioned that I want to have a quick disconnect system. So I want to be able to take this off and actually remove the brake light completely. So we've got the brake light now. The brake light can come completely off, and hopefully there will be a license plate behind here. So that if we need to, we just take this off, go put it in the truck or whatever we need to, and leave it at the house, whatever, and be able to use it on the dirt. Dirt's not going to break this because it's plastic. It's not the highest of quality, but it will completely work for what we have to do. It's got 3M tape on the back of it, and I went through. This is my left side, this is my right side. Kind of looked on how I want it to be on the bike, but the general thought is that it's hanging out somewhere about right here. Maybe up in here. Maybe in here. I haven't quite decided. It's really flexible, so you can kind of put it wherever you need to, but I'd love to put it right here and just have it hang out with the license plate, but we will see. With that, I'm gonna run the wire down through here, under, and then up this way, so I don't have to cut any holes. So that's actually a huge win for this part, but we're gonna go ahead. We got the wire loom, so we can put the wire, the quick connect somewhere in there. Okay. Now, the biggest thing when you're working with LEDs is being able to test it before you actually put them on. Always want to test it, especially these cheaper ones. You want to test them before you turn it on. And then I also made the wire loom for it, so we're testing to see if everything's still going through the quick disconnect just fine. So we've got our positive on a 9-volt battery, a little 9-volt battery, and some alligator clips. And we'll go ahead and put that back on. So green is our negative, and then yellow is our positive, and we'll go ahead and do a couple lights. So there is the running lights. That's what the bike will have on all the time. Here's our blinker. And you have to get a module to turn the blinker to actually blink. Here is the other blinker, and then here is the brake signal. So if you see I'm touching it, I've already got a problem. One of my wires on my brake isn't working. It's always a good thing to check it. So we've got lots of stuff we can do. You can see both the... No, what one? Oh, I want these two. So these two are the ones that I want. There you go. There's both your turn signals, your brake signal, and then this one's supposed to be an even brighter brake signal for when you actually push the brakes. So with this, everything that you're kind of going to need at this point is your switches. So this has your left and right, your lights, your horn. You have to have a horn, as well as the lights. You need your lights. And then this is a pressure switch. So this one goes through your banjo bolt, and when it detects pressure, whenever it has pressure, it sends a current through, and that will put the brakes on. That's what actually pushes your brake light for you. When you push your brakes, you'll trigger that, and it will turn the brake light on. And then this is our blinker solenoid. So we've got blinker solenoid, we've got our horn, we've got our lights, we've got a pressure switch, and then we've got switches to actually turn stuff on. So this is generally what you need to complete it, and then a little bit of wire to connect everything together. Soldering iron is not a bad idea, and then if you want to make a pretty wire loom and stuff like that. You don't have to have this quick connect. You can totally just solder it all together and be done with it. I want to have it semi-removable so that it can come off of the bike. Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes into doing this, and everything that I use is going to be down in the description below. So make sure to check that stuff out. If you're having questions, leave a comment. Easiest way to get to me, just leave a comment, and I'll check through them. Make sure that we got everything dialed. Now, this is going to be my system, my setup, and remember, I'm going to be adding a headlight later. But for right now, this is where we're at, and this is what we've got kind of going on. Another thing that's really worth mentioning is if your bike doesn't have a battery, it's going to be a lot harder. Not harder, but it's not the way that I'm doing it. I have a battery on my bike, and I'm using that battery to charge everything. If you don't have a battery on your bike, if it's an older bike, then you're going to need to go through the stator, and the stator will actually give you your power. So I've got my wire loom kind of just started. It's literally just 5 wires I pulled off an old engine harness that I had that had some random colors in it. I managed to match them up pretty okay, but I already found where my problem was with that one. I'm betting that's my problem. It's not connected. So it came out of the actual pin connector in there. So we'll have to de-pin this one and pull it out and make sure that it's actually hooked onto something. Brake lights. Brake lights. Perfect. So it should look like this until we hit our brakes. Now that part was actually super easy. I actually haven't really done anything. All I did was basically extend the wires. And with that I put a quick connect in the middle of it. Not the end of the world. Just making sure that everything fits or still works. And now we'll go ahead and show you the fronts. I'm really eager to show you the fronts. They're pretty cool. So I've got the fronts and the rear in a kit all in one. And I'm pretty excited about it. I'll show you guys. They're really cool. I think that the coolest part about it is that they're so stealth you can't really even tell where they're at. I mean, if you go ahead and turn the bike to the side, you can't tell where the actual lights are until they get pointed out or they're on. So the lights are actually right here. So here's one of the lights, and this is our headlight as well as a turn signal for right now. I'm going to be mounting a LED bar, I'm assuming right there, maybe right there, I haven't decided. I saw a guy on the internet that put pod lights right here. That might be kind of cool, but for right now, this is what we've got. This is what we're working with. So here's the fronts and the turn signals of these lights. So they don't show up super great with the lights all on because the lights are very, very powerful and these are just some little LEDs. But there they are. You can see the lights are on this side as well as that side. And then if we go ahead and turn the blinker on, so there's a blinker, and there's the other blinker. Now I've already installed them on the bike. Sorry, I couldn't help myself because I wanted to see them really, really bad. So it's not bad, it's just 3M tape on the back, and then actually it has a zip tie that's going around through the back side of it. So you have to zip tie it together and then just cut the tail off. But that's all that's really holding it on. It's 3M double-sided sticky tape and then a zip tie. And then you have your wires coming out the back side. Now we're to the point where we got to start taking some plastics off to be able to tuck this and hide it. Because you don't want the wires hanging out on the outside of the plastics and you don't want to fish them through the plastics. It's like 6 bolts. Take off the side of the plastics. I'll probably fish it around the tank, the gas tank, because I don't want to deal with that. But the seat and the side plastics, those can come off real easy. So we'll take those off. We also need to take them off to access the battery. So there we go. And then we can start figuring out our wiring. Maybe I'll start with the actual switch, figure out the switches first. I don't know. We got to take some stuff off. We got some stuff to do. So we got to take our grips off and then our hand guards to get our switch on and then plastics. Okay, so I've got the wiring pretty much dialed in. Right here I'm splicing a lot of this stuff in. If I was doing it without this connector on, I would definitely wire it all and then pull it through the frame. This is making it a lot harder because that plug is so big you can't wire or you can't fish it through all the tight little spaces. So I've got my lighting pretty well figured out. For the most part, I have my horn left to do, which is right here. This white is horn, and then my brake light. My brake light I got to figure out. So with the brakes, you have to go through the pressure switch. Got to get power to one side, and then we got to take the pressure switch, which is over here, and your pressure switch has a pass-through, so you'll have power through one side, and when it senses pressure, it'll send power through the other side and complete the circuit, and that will turn your brake light on. And then we've also got our horn. Horn works the same way. We've got power to one side, and once it senses that it's grounded or it has power going through it, it will turn the horn on. So we've got some stuff figured out, but the main thing is the turn signals have been figured out because the fronts, they're identical. They look exactly the same. One is or they both have yellows, and technically a yellow is one side, green is your other side. So it takes a little finicking to do, but I managed to get everything kind of dialed in. So your main switch right here, you've got your left or your right turn signal, then your lights, and then your horn. Well, all that has this wire loom, and everything comes out of it different colors. So this red is very important. It comes in, or it's the power for your switches for your actual turn signals. Now, the fronts will actually go through and they have a sequence by themselves, but the backs do not, from I guess from just the factory or from how they come. They don't. They will just light up yellow. So to fix that, you use a switch right here. This is your LED switch. This is your turn signal, and it will go through, and that's giving you power to your turn signals. Without this, you will have just a yellow light in the back for your turn signal. It won't blink. But with this, it's your blinker. So got that wired up. This is my main power source, coming from power from the battery. Now I'm going to change that to a switched power. But for right now, I just have it temporarily hooked up to some alligator clips so I can test everything before I finalize it. Just testing, making sure I got places where things go, and then I'll go ahead and clean up all this wiring. This is just temporary to get me started, I guess, on where things need to go. So the red wire, super important. That goes to your blinker and module, and then it comes through and it will send power through the green and the yellow as a blinking signal, not as a power signal, because otherwise it's just on. And with this, it turns it on and off. So it works great with the fronts. The fronts will sync up to the backs. Not the end of the world if they don't, but they do because of that. So that takes care of the red, as well as the green and the yellow out of the button switch here. Now, whites are your horn. So this white will go to the horn. We've got one white and one blue connected to constant power. So that way I've got power. I can give power through the switch to whatever I need to. One being the lights, the daytime runnings, and then the other being the horn. So your white's the horn. This will go through your horn into a ground. And then the blue is your running lights, or I have it set up as the running lights. You can have it as your headlight and wire your blue straight to a switch, which will turn on. So if it's on a switch, it will just turn on whenever the bike's on. I don't want it on all the time. I want to be able to select it on. So I put the daytime running lights on blue to always on with the switch. So it has constant power, and then as soon as I hit the switch, it will turn on the lights. So really quick, you've got red going to your module. You've got a white and a blue. Doesn't matter, just one of them has to go to a power, a constant power. I've got constant power to the back. And then the other side of your switch goes to constant power so it can draw from it. And then you've got yellow and green, which are your turn signals, one for each side. Blue is your lights, your daytime running lights, and white is the horn. Now that's everything coming out of this button switch setup. So we can wire all that stuff in. It looks like it's a mess, but you just slowly take it one job at a time. So you work on your blinkers, and then alligator clips are your friend. Just alligator clips to batteries, or a little 9-volt battery works great too. Either way, you can get power to it. The bike has a battery, so we'll just use the battery from the bike. But we've got pretty much everything dialed in. I need to finish my lengths, and I've got some heat shrink on here. I've got a heat shrink stuff and wire loom. I've got my wire loom kind of started, but we've got some work ahead of us. But here's an update. Wire in our brake switch here in a second, and I'll show you where the module, I think I'm going to put the module right here. I want to try to put the horn right here somewhere. a little bit out of the way. I might put the horn up behind the number plate. I don't know. I'm still working a couple things out. But we need to figure out a brake switch as well, and we will figure that out in a minute. Cool, I managed to get the front pretty well buttoned up. There's no real wires. You can't really tell too much of anything that's not factory. I did have to tuck a couple wires back here. This one's definitely noticeable that it's not factory, but that's okay. I don't have to be completely factory, but it doesn't look like giant mess saw before. And we've installed our horn and found a pretty good ground for everything. You can't even tell where the horn really is. The horn is actually tucked in behind here, mounted up on this bracket up top. There's a little bolt up here. It's hanging down and facing in. So it's facing in there. You can kind of see the... Can't really see, but that's part of the point. I don't want it to be super obvious. So I've got that horn tossed back in there, and then we've got a nice ground right here, grounding everything. The horn and the ground for the whole controller. Looped it all around, come up. You can see it right here. I need to tuck it down a little bit better. Want to have a little bit of slack so it's not rubbing on it. Loomed it all. Got it moved all the way back here, and now I've got 3 wires. Well, our connector, which is already done. Our main power, which needs to be to a switch power. And then our brake light for when we press the brakes, it makes it brighter. So, we've got to figure that out. With that comes the pressure switch. So I'm going to have to run this to a pressure switch to positive always on, because if whenever I hit the brakes, I want it to put power to the rear light. With that, I'm going to want to put a fuse in here at some point, right in here between our main, because I don't want anything to go wrong with this stuff up here and cause a problem with the bike, especially out on the trail. That can be catastrophic. So I can live without this. If this pops a fuse, I can totally make it home with that. No big deal. But you just want to protect yourself. Give yourself a fuse. Okay, so now we're on to the pressure switch. What activates the actual brake light. So you got this pressure switch. It goes over the banjo bolt, and it will thread into one of the brake cylinders. So when you press the brake, it'll have hydraulic pressure. That pressure is then sensed by this and sends out an electrical, well, it makes a circuit. So it'll connect the 2 wires basically together, and that will send power through, and that will send power to the brake line. Now, there's a couple different ways we can mount this. We can mount this to the front brake or the back brake. Technically, you're supposed to do both, but I don't have room in the front to actually put this in, because with our hand guards here, if we look, we'd have to put our brake line in, and I just don't got the room for it right there. So, that being said, I didn't really want it on the front brake anyways. I'm going to put it on the back brake. So whenever I want to warn people I'm slowing down, you just have to remember, hey, use the back brake. So if we go down to the back brake here, we have got plenty of room to put this in right there. So this will go, we'll take this nut out, take the banjo bolt off of the hydraulic line. We'll have to put new hydraulic or new brake fluid in it, but this will go right in there, and then we'll wire it up and have to make our way around this exhaust, which is going to be hot, and go eventually make it up in here to this wire. So let's get to it. I am going to make the brake, however, hot all the time. So one of them is going to be connected to positive, so that no matter if the bike's on or not, the brake light will still come on. And I'll always have power to it. So we will go ahead and do that. Now I've already cut the ends off of this. It came with a couple green connector ends. Not going to use that. I'm going to solder them in so it's a nice solid connection. We'll go ahead, take the sheath off of it, and you can actually take this little 90 and pull it off. And that will help us thread in this piece because I don't have the room to be spinning a 90-degree turn around in there. So now we can do it through the top and we won't have any problems. Put this 90 back on, make a nice clean factory looking piece, and go from there. Okay, finally got that new adapter in here, the banjo bolt. Got the wires ready. Now hopefully we can test it and see if we have continuity between these two once we push on our brake pedal. Now I've gone ahead and I've already bled the brakes. You open up the banjo bolt, so you have to bleed the brakes, but we'll bleed the brake, or their brakes are bled. Now let's go ahead and test this out. So now I'm holding both on the wires, and if we push the brake pedal, we're looking for zeros. So see if I can push it. There we go, we've got 0. So that means it's connected and it's working. Cool. So now we will do a temporary test to make sure that everything's right in theory and go ahead and try this out. So I've got temp power hooked to the switch. So if we go ahead and we push our foot down on the brake, we actually have brake lights. Sweet. So, sorry for the lighting, but it looks so much better when it's darker, but everything's installed. We've got our front lights on there, and then we've got all of our plastics set back on, our wires kind of tucked. I still need to make a license plate frame. It's dark, so you can't really see that, but I wanted to show you guys in the dark what it looks like with the lights on. So if we go ahead and push our red button right here, that's our lights. Turns our lights on. If I actually push the button, turns our lights on. So we've got our front lights and our back. And now if we go ahead and turn our blinker on, it will turn a light off and turns the blinker on. And then we can go to the back and the blinker's on in the back. And the front, or the other side. And the other side. And we can also turn the blinkers on without the lights. So I've got my blinker and then just a blinker. And the other thing is we've got our brake wired up. So our brake now, if we go ahead and push the brake, here's what it looks like with the lights on in the garage and the lights off. You can't hardly tell where they're at. And all my plastics are back on. I don't have any wires hanging out. I ran my main wire loom, so my connection's back here to take the brake light off. So if I need to, I just take this panel off and I can quickly undo it, pull that out, and then put the panel back on. So I've got 3 bolts and then a quick clip, and I lose my back system. I think I still got to figure out my mounting system for my license plate, but I think that's going to be a different video because for right now, we've got everything kind of dialed in. I've got the light just jammed in there right now, but that's where I want it. And that's kind of where I'm thinking that the license plate's going to sit. But for right now, it works. Everything's tucked in. I ran my main wire loom. Sits in my battery, comes down here, comes up and over. You can kind of see it right there. And you can kind of, then it comes down. I've got my relay sitting right here for my blinkers. My horn sitting in the back right there. So I can turn the horn on. And then all my other wires come up this way. I've got my wire to this light. And then it wraps underneath the stem. Comes over to this side. The wire for this light and everything you can turn. That's a big thing. Make sure you've got full turn or enough slack for full turn, because it will pull these out. It's not a very big cable, and if you pull or if you turn when you're pulling, it's gonna pull it out. And then my main wire loom is this one. Goes up to the switch. Now I've just gone over, followed all these cables, went underneath these cable ties, and it's just underneath the back side here. So I had to take everything off. I put it between the brakes, so my brakes set in a little bit more. It's a little more than I like, but it's tolerable. I mean, it's only half an inch, whatever this is. And then my brake, or my kill switch. I like to have that over it. It's going to be interesting to see if I actually want my kill switch here, or if I want to move my kill switch to somewhere else. I'm thinking like way over here. But I like how this is set up. But with that, when you go to do your turn signal, you have to actually reach over your kill switch to turn the signal on, and you might accidentally kill it. It'll be interesting. I might change it, but for right now, I like how the setup is. I can still use it as a dirt bike. I don't have things in my way, and it's far enough, like it's in my reach, but it's far enough away where it's not in the way. So it kind of is what it is. Well, that's gonna do it for me on this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you like it. I'll leave parts lists of all the parts that I used down below. Now with that, you're going to need wiring. I'm not going to include the wiring on that. You can figure your wiring stuff out. And then solder points, and then if you want to make it pretty and use the loom stuff and heat shrink, that stuff's kind of on you guys. I'll just leave the parts to the main items down below. And with that, I'm going to end this video. Let me know if you want a wiring diagram. I might do that when I do the license plate in the back. I might add that to that video. That way you can kind of follow what I did. But for the most part, you're just installing the same. It would kind of be helpful. If you don't have an ohm meter, it'd be really helpful actually to know kind of where things go, what colors on what components are what. That'd be kind of helpful. I might do that. Let me know. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if you want a wiring diagram. I'll add it probably into the next video when I do the license plate, the bracket, all that stuff. So that'll probably help you guys out. But like I said, if you need links to stuff, I'll leave links down below. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to get out of here. I freaking love this. It's going to be sweet. So hopefully you guys enjoy it too. Take it easy, everyone. I'm going to get out of here. Peace.